Irwin looked for work in Los Angeles. His only skills, cooking, comedy, and planetary exploration. He quickly stumbled into a familiar face.
Once the mob knows who you are, you're marked for life. They made me in Las Vegas and exiled me to Los Angeles, the lowest of the low. Television executive. I was getting it from everyone. The station managers wanted hits. The sponsors wanted shows that promoted their products. The public wanted anything other than the shows the station managers liked and the public liked. I didn't have a friend in this town. They invented the drive-thru so I wouldn't have to be seen going into even a donut shop. One day I'm in the commissary and there he was, that funny little guy who cost me my job in Las Vegas. This was a chance for me to save my bacon and enjoy a little payback. Before he knew what hit him, Irwin Gray was in costume and on the set.
If you are just joining us, this is the Hollywood Stars Show, brought to you by Electronic Service Unit 16. This shall continue until temporal terminus, or until Gary and Skylar return with a rescue craft. To this end, we are transmitting from the Leon Schlesinger Theater, which comfortably sleeps 312, including the production crew. If this program is successful, there will be a sequel called Son of Hollywood Stars. Unfortunately, none of you will be able to watch that show because you will be fleeing invaders from the planet Zagon.
While Irwin's groundbreaking television show brought him fame and fortune, his spectacular arrival in California brought him to the attention of the Air Force.
An Air Force cargo plane crashing and burning without authorization is always a matter of concern for the OSI. I was sent to investigate. At the time, I had just been attached to the Los Angeles Air Force Base at El Segundo. We were looking into mostly petty crimes, theft, fights, nothing extraordinary. On investigating the Burbank event, Mr. and Mrs. Gray came to my attention as being persons of interest. I recognized Mr. Gray's description from an FBI bulletin out of Las Vegas. In a few days, I was working with Special Agent Vernon Fitch on the trail of a Soviet spy and saboteur.
What a break. Irwin Gray had used his underground contacts and KGB guile to elude me in Las Vegas. Now he turned up in Los Angeles with a new cover. So clever no one would ever suspect. He was using the double bluff. He was using the same name. No one would suspect that Irwin Gray and Irwin Gray were the same person.
Irwin was doing great. I always watched his show. I was so proud of him, even though it was only television. But the show took up all his time. He was spending more time with his celebrity friends than with me. I know it sounds silly now, but I started to think I wasn't smart enough for Irwin. I made the decision to go back to night school. I didn't know what to study, but I really liked helping Irwin on his projects. I had learned a few things from him, so I decided to study science. I took some exams, paid some fees, and ended up at Caltech. They really liked my entrance exam scores.
Mrs. Gray came to us with the highest mathematics scores we had ever seen. Her initial grasp of quantum mechanics was impressive. She threw herself into her studies. From the outset, she was at the top of her class. It wasn't long before she was organizing various departments to develop a high-energy experiment in multidimensional quantum displacement.
School turned out to be way more fun than being a waitress. Once we got past the easy parts, things got interesting. I used a bunch of the things that Irwin had talked about when he was making all of his gadgets. I was going to surprise him. He and I were going to see his home planet. After Irwin's show one night, I picked him up and I brought him to the college. I couldn't wait to see the look on his face.
I was ready to spring the trap. I was going to grab him at the television studio right after the last broadcast of his show. My Air Force contact came along. She had a few questions about a stolen cargo plane. We brought the Los Angeles Police Department with us just to make sure he didn't slip away again.
I got to the studio early to surprise Irwin. As soon as they turned off the cameras, I whisked him away to the lab. He didn't even have time to change.
We waited at the studio, but he never came out, and an inquiry at the front desk revealed that Irwin had left just before we arrived.
Irwin Gray was with his wife Betty. Their destination, Caltech campus.
If they overlooked the roar of the police motorcycles, the flashing red lights, and the sirens of the entire police department, they would never hear us coming.
I got word about the raid at Caltech from a friend at Parker Center. The FBI and the Air Force were involved. I figured I'd get there first.
The Los Angeles police were real professional. They had Caltech sewn up, tight as a drum. Nothing was getting in or out of there.
I slipped past the police to get into the lab and get a good seat for the action. I needed the money, and freelance photography is all about getting the shot. I got the shot all right.
My lab assistant, Miles, had everything warmed up.
I had been in the lab all day. The coordinates for the system were hardwired in. Mrs. Gray had not yet invented non-volatile toroid matrix memory. Computers were too slow, so we had to complete all the calculations manually, with slide rule and pencil. The system itself required a huge amount of energy. We disconnected the synchrotron project in the next building and ramped up the power to our equipment. Mrs. Gray had to arrive on time because the event would occur when we reached critical electron volt levels, whether we were ready or not. Mrs. Gray dubbed the event a worm bubble.
I called it a worm bubble. It was a classic polydimensional wormhole, but the Carr solution singularity was stabilized by a static quantum warp bubble, so the name just made sense. When we got to the lab, there was no place to park. Police cars and motorcycles were everywhere. So we parked on the other side of the building and went in the back door. There was a photographer there. I thought he was from the college paper.
To get pictures at a police raid, no one wants to be seen. Everyone is busy either chasing or being chased. It's typically pretty tense. This one was easy. That funny little guy from TV shows up, and the next thing you know, we're in a big lab with a ton of scientific junk. It looked like Frankenstein's lab, only better.
The trap was ready to spring. I gave the signal, and we moved in.